Sometimes a single breath can weigh the entire world. John stood frozen in the foyer of his own house, his suitcase still dumped on the rug, when the landline began to ring. The sound was too loud, too sharp, echoing through the walls like the house itself was scolding him. He stared at the phone, unable to answer, his heart hammering with a stubborn, painful rhythm. Outside, a mail truck rattled by, leaving behind a ghost of diesel that drifted through the half-open door. The phone kept ringing, insistent, almost mocking. And in that moment, John felt something shift inside him, like fate had just spun, on its heel and pointed right back at him. That's when it hit him. Everything that had happened in that hotel might not have been there to haunt him, but to bring him home in time. Still, one question pulsed at the back of his throat. What, if it wasn't over? You're in Tales of the Watcher, where fates are glimpsed, not told, and every step you take is seen by eyes you'll never meet. The air hums with secrets, daring you to listen. Stick around, subscribe for the journey, and in today's story, it started the way the most unsettling things often do, far too quietly, almost politely. John had arrived at the Winston Grand on a grey Tuesday, light rain smudging storefront windows as his taxi crawled through downtown. From the back seat, he watched people hustling under bright umbrellas, lives that felt as far from his own as distant planets. Inside the lobby, an artificial lemon scent tried to mask something damp woven deep into the carpet. The front desk. Clark gave him a robotic smile, handed over a key card, barely glanced at his ID. The elevator groaned its way up, mirrors streaked with fingerprints reflecting John's rumpled suit and hollow eyes. In room 413, he finally dropped his bag, loosened his tie, and called home. Hearing his wife's voice, the dog barking, the kids squabbling over the tablet, it filled his chest with a soft, aching warmth. Later, he collapsed onto a mattress that felt like it still held the shape of countless strangers sinking under a weight that didn't quite belong to him. He stared up at water stains on the ceiling, warped shapes that almost reached for him. Sleep only claimed him after a long, restless battle with unfinished thoughts. Then, right at 2:17 a.m., the room phone rang, slicing through the dark. "Hello?" he rasped. "Room 314? A woman asked, playful, like she was letting him in on a secret. "No, it's 413. "Oh," she sighed, disappointed in a way that crawled down his spine. The click of her hanging up snapped in his ear like a small bone breaking. The next day, between endless reports and stale coffee, that call faded into the back of his mind. John spent hours in a windowless office discussing probabilities and losses, numbers that only made sense on spreadsheets. When he returned to the hotel that evening, the front desk clerk didn't even look up. In the elevator, a woman stepped in beside him, arms full of shopping bags. She hit the button for the third floor and studied their reflection in the smudged glass. "Long day?" she asked, her smile thin, her tone a quiet conspiracy. "Yeah," John muttered, gripping his briefcase tighter. "Hope you get some good rest. In 314. His head snapped toward her, but the doors were already opening on her floor. Alone again, he let out a nervous laugh. Must have misheard. Back in his room, he poured cheap whiskey into a plastic cup from the minibar, ice popping and melting. Fast. Then the phone rang again. He snatched it up so quickly he nearly spilled his drink. "Mr. Darrow, is this room 314? Rasped a different voice, older, smoked out. "No, this is 413. A silence stretched out, long enough for him to catch a faint second line, a distant breath. "That's what they all say," the man muttered. Click. John stood there with the receiver pressed to his ear until the dial tone began to sound more like a sorrowful moan. By the third day, a dull itch under his ribs made it hard to focus. Meetings blurred together. During breaks, he scrolled through videos of his kids playing in the yard. He wanted to call them back right then, but just stared at the screen, feeling miles away. That night, walking down the hallway, he noticed the light outside room 314 flicker out the moment he passed. In his own room, a faint sweet scent clung to the air, eerily close to his wife's perfume, but heavier, almost sour. He stood there sniffing, trying to pin it down, when the phone shrieked again. He let it ring 6 times before lifting the receiver. "Hello? Room 314? I have a message about your family's life insurance." The woman's voice was too calm, too steady. "What? Who is this? Why are you calling here?" "Oh, isn't this John Miller in 314? "No, it's 413. Please stop this." "Tell him we don't always get to choose. Fate has its own little jokes." The bedside lamp flickered so violently he nearly dropped the phone. When he glanced at the mirror, he swore he saw his son standing behind him. But the room was empty. That night, his dream came in jagged flashes, his wife sobbing into the phone, silent ambulances with spinning lights, his youngest pointing straight at him, accusing. The next morning, he woke up with a raw knot in his stomach. At breakfast, he overheard 2 older men whispering about a nasty accident that had happened nearby weeks ago. Left 2 little boys. Guy in 314, remember? Heart just gave out. John's coffee turned bitter on his tongue. Leaving the cafe, he passed a maid's cart in the hall. On top of fresh towels sat a black phone receiver, old-fashioned, its cord cut clean. He rushed back to his room, packing with frantic hands. When he called home, his voice broke. "Don't take the kids out today, okay? Just wait for me." "John, what's wrong?" "Please, just stay inside. I'm coming home." An hour later, he was checking out, ignoring the puzzled look from the front desk. As he wheeled his suitcase out, he passed the woman from the elevator. She met his gaze, then ran a finger slowly across her lips, sealing them tight. In the cab to the airport, John closed his eyes and whispered his children's names under his breath, like a prayer he didn't quite trust. He made it home the next morning, lungs aching with relief at the familiar smell of damp grass, the rusty squeal of the gate. His wife answered the door, eyes wide and red. "You didn't see the news?" On her phone, a video showed crumpled cars and silent flashing lights. An accident just 3 blocks from the kids' school, exactly when she would have been driving them. John collapsed onto the couch, hands over his face. That's when the house phone began to ring, loud, sharp, slicing right through the room. He lifted his head slowly, eyes wide. It rang again. And again. The dog barked once, then tucked his tail, whining. John took a breath that stuttered in his chest. He didn't answer. The ringing kept going, as if to remind him. Some debts don't end just because you come home. Down the quiet hall, the phone kept ringing and ringing and ringing,